everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations. And today I'm going to be talking about the Pluto in Sagittarius generation, and in particular talking about some of the current aspects that you are going through at this stage, and just wanting to maybe give you some tips on how to navigate through this current time frame, and to help yourself deal a little bit more with how to watch what is happening for you as you go through these current transits. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about today for you guys. I got an email from somebody, that a subscriber that had Pluto and Sagittarius, and I remember also talking to my sister recently as well. She's not really Pluto and Sag generation. She's actually Pluto and Scorpio at 29 degrees, just 1 year before Pluto hits Sag, but the transit to a certain degree still affects her. Themes will be different, but the Saturn transit is obviously affecting her. So that's the first thing that I want to bring attention to. Okay, now for every single one of you that is born between 1996 and 2008, you'll have Pluto in Sagittarius. Okay, now Pluto in Sagittarius marked a period of time in which we began the transition from left logical linear ways of seeing things and moving to the more creative, abstract, right brain, sensory perception world. Okay, and you will notice that if you pay attention to not only your own generation, but of course the rest of any of your friends or anybody that's watching it that's not Pluto and Sag, if you're watching that generation itself, you'll notice that you guys are born into a world where technology was on the rise at a very rapid rate. And anybody pre this time would be using technology, but it wasn't as sophisticated and as advanced as it is right now. And of course, if you even look into the future in terms of the current trajectory that humanity is going on and its development of its technology, you'll actually begin to see quite a large amount of insight as to what energy frequency the Pluto and Sagittarius contain. And I'll add to a lot of this information. So Pluto and Sagittarius, you're born during this transition from leftness to rightness, the left brain to the right brain experience, becoming more feminine in our approach, becoming more abstract, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, part of your story as a Pluto in Sagittarius soul is to develop faith and to come into this world in which the world itself seems to be in a very obscure looking type of way. And for you guys, this is not something that you generally question as deeply as some of the souls that are, post 44, etc., or maybe even the Pluto and Scorpios, etc. This is what I'm saying. It's not as pondered deeply because you're still yet to come into the world in a way where what it means to go past your first Saturn return and all of these types of cycles, that maturity has not been reached in you yet. So what you see in the world is this very bizarre place that to a certain degree doesn't really make sense, but yet at the same time, to try and make sense of it is not really going to help you in that way. So what you are impacted on currently at the moment is the rest of humanity going, oh my gosh, we've got to have faith because it just seems as if this world's going insane. And part of that process is what is actually in the Pluto story for every single one of you individually and on a collective level. Okay, you've come to learn the Sagittarius lessons, or watch the Sagittarius lessons, should I say, instead. And that, as I said again, is about this transition. It's about developing faith from a right brain abstract perspective. And it's about knowing your truth. Now, for many of you, your capacity to have wisdom and knowledge is actually quite accelerated. Okay. And part of this experience in itself is something that you won't actually, in my opinion, I haven't seen it, and I could be saying something that is completely not true. So if you have got any opinions on the subject, in the description below, you can write your comments on your direct knowing. But for me, what I've noticed is that even to try and contrast between the old world and the one that you're currently existing within, the knowledge in itself is so incredibly vast, because knowledge was gained through books and libraries, whereas now knowledge is kind of kept in a cloud, and there is libraries and there is books, etc. But those things aren't as predominant at that time than it is today, right? We are able to access a lot of knowledge on the internet very fast, whereas knowledge didn't travel as fast as it did in the past. So your capacity to have such deep wisdom and knowledge at such a young age is a very powerful insight into how this unfoldment of our switch to higher knowledge and higher consciousness is taking place. And your genetic imprinting, of course, carries this naturally as you're born into these time frames, and how our DNA is evolving. So as you kind of like grow up in your life, you will notice that there is this strong search for what is your truth. There's a strong search for what do you believe, what is real, what isn't real, and so on and so forth, okay? And then the bottom of that is having faith. Now, and what's also interesting about your generation is the fact that Uranus is, and I'm not entirely 110% sure, but I know that Uranus spent a great deal of time in Aquarius, okay? But I think Uranus and Neptune was in Capricorn maybe from 1996 up until maybe 1998, year 2000. So some of you are born with Uranus in Capricorn, some of you are born with Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn, and then post, I think, the year 2000, Uranus and Neptune went into Aquarius. And then, of course, the latter stages of your birth, so 2006, 2005, 2004, you would have Uranus in Pisces, and you would have Neptune in Aquarius. So there's an interesting thing there. And what was really fascinating about this time was that in 1993, 94, there was a conjunction with Uranus and Neptune that took place in Capricorn. And then post that conjunction, they went into their relative signs, and that was the assimilation of that conjunction that took place in 1995. So post 1995, 94, energy was being integrated onto the planet, and that was Uranus in Aquarius, Uranus in Pisces, and Neptune through Capricorn, Neptune through Aquarius, and of course now Neptune's in Pisces. So that whole entire switch from leftness to rightness is basically from 1995 onwards up until the year 2002. And then now all of a sudden we're seeing this shift on a collective level taking place for us. And here we have technology where we have transcended our limitations. And not only have we transcended our limitations, we are also able to actually access this knowledge at such an incredibly fast rate. So you see this thread that I'm talking about here. And I hope I haven't lost anybody. Please hit the pause button and rewind to really watch the train of thought that I'm working with there. So you get this picture of what you are essentially here to watch unfold. And then individually in your natal charts, that will become more apparent to you. Now, currently at the moment, Saturn, for most of you that are reaching your 20s, so some of you would be reaching your 20s right now. I think 20 would be the age that I think the highest that you can be at this stage. I think from 21, maybe a couple of you are 21, but 20 is the oldest age, and you're going to be approaching what is called your first Saturn, or your first. Let me put it to you this way. The wording is a little bit interesting. Your third Saturn square. Okay, so Saturn it's actually your second Saturn square. I do apologize sincerely, guys. It's your second Saturn square. Your first one took at the age of 7. Then you had a Saturn opposition at 14, and now you're approaching your Saturn, your second Saturn square, and that's the first Saturn square that you will have, pre your Saturn return, right? So you'll have another one afterwards, of course, post your Saturn return. That's a whole new different cycle. So that was the confusion. And so from the ages of 20, 21, I would say probably 19, 20, 21, that time frame, but it would be highlighted at 21 in that sense. You would begin to liberate. You would begin to start the process of liberation. Okay. Now, for some of you, you probably would also be experiencing your first Uranus square. Okay. Now, of course, have your astrology charts up at this stage. And if you don't know what your astrology chart looks like for you guys that are born with the Pluto and Sagittarius, go to astro.com, www.astro.com, and you will be able to, collect a chart over there and build one up, and then just click transits. And then look for Uranus and Saturn. Okay. So you've got your first Uranus square that's taking place. You've got your second Saturn square that's taking place. And this marks a very powerful transition on your ego structure. Okay. Uranus asks you to begin the process of deconditioning. So now you're losing, and depending on where your Uranus is in your chart will dictate how you're going to experience this. And this is why it's important to kind of like learn astrology, or at least consult an astrologer on this process so that you can get that specificness correct. So you'd be having your Uranus square, and that is process of deconditioning, which is why generally during that period of time, we begin to find ourselves wanting to break free from the structure of the home environment in which we were kind of being conditioned by. And so this is a time where you begin to lose the desire to want to follow the rules. You would want to now begin to find your own space, your own freedom, your own sense of individuality. And yet at the same time, your sense of identity has not been fully matured yet, because of course you haven't gone past your first Saturn return. So by your 21, you're still developing this sense of identity. And the square is what is called the crisis in consciousness square, right? And this crisis in consciousness square is the same as a Uranian effect. It is deconditioning, it's breaking free, it's wanting to individuate, it's wanting to find my purpose. And so you then leave home, as an example, and go to college, or you find yourself renting home for the first time and going out into the world and kind of doing the laborious acts of doing whatever it is that you need to do to pay your bills and stuff. And you find yourself learning about life in a way that was very different to when you were growing up. Now, this is, of course, is not a generic statement, because many of you might have had to and wanted to, depending on where your Saturn is in your chart, wanted to develop your own sense of inner authority before this stage. But for the majority of you, this cycle would be promoting this very strong need for self-reliance, this strong need for wanting to become your own authority. And it's a very profound, but yet also immensely confusing time, because, as I said before, integrating yourself into the world, where the world is saying, do you know who you are? What's your personality? In order to know these things, you've got to have this down. So here's your direction. Do you know what your direction is? All these massive questions. And there's all you want to do is go, I just want to party. I just want to kind of like not follow the rules. I don't want to wake up every single day and do this type of thing. I want to kind of like be free and just exist. And for most of you, that's generally the case. For some of you, of course, that are very focused and want to kind of like begin your path to whatever it is that you want to become, you might go off to college and find yourself like just studying and getting any form of education that you feel. Either way, you're still doing the thing of breaking free and beginning your path. So it's a very confusing time, and it's okay to feel confused at this stage. In fact, if you don't feel confused, I would think that either you've been really privileged and you've got an immense amount of guidance around you at that stage, or you are at a point where life is just saying to you, okay, it's now time to know what to do. And it can feel like you're losing all meaning in life. It can feel like you're losing a sense of personal identity, and that is also okay, So what's taking place for you right now, not only with those two alignments, is, and this will take place for you, of course, and for anybody that's watching this and goes back to that time, you'll notice that within yourself as well. Your ego is being developed, but in a way where your self-identity is trying to be expressed, but you don't know what that is yet, and you're kind of like trying to figure it out. And again, the freedom part. Now, you are also having a Saturn conjunct your Pluto. And that's a big deal. Now, for you guys that are born, 1996, your Pluto is at like 1 degree Sag. So you would have already gone through the Saturn transit, the Saturn conjunct your Pluto. And so you would have already experienced what Saturn conjunct Pluto is all about, which is this dying off of desires and direction and a kind of regrowth of what it is that you essentially have come to understand about yourself. And yet at the same time, the process of that direction is now being met with this Uranus and Saturn square, which is then creating even more confusion about where to go. Because not only is this death process of choice around where and what I want to do being highlighted to you with the transiting Saturn right now in Sagittarius over your natal Plutos. And of course, Saturn's at 23 degrees, 24 degrees at the moment in Sagittarius. So I would say that this is the generation or where I would say you were born between the year 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. I would say that that's where your, you guys that are watching that right now, that's where it's the most intense. Anyone before that time, you've already had the transit. It probably will go back to any of you that were born maybe 1998, 1999. But then after Saturn's retrograde is completed by next year, June, July, then that will be done. And you would have gone through this mutation process. The change would have happened. The soul awakening experience would have happened. You would have had a reality of your life. Okay, so pay attention to these moments as they shift you in the direction that your soul has come to understand about yourself. So that also has been a very heavy burden on you, where the desires and the nature of yourself and the soul, it's very deep, and and it's okay. Like I said, just allow this process and this phase to move along through you. Okay, it's reshaping you for a reason. But some of you have also got Saturn at the moment that is in Sagittarius, and you will have if you have your nodal axis, okay, your nodes themselves. Now, I think that this maybe applies to the souls that are born 2005, 2006, and maybe 2007. During that period of time, Saturn will begin to square this node, which is a very big deal, because now all of a sudden you'll start to notice that your life becomes like in the seesaw event, where there's these two extremes taking place and you're needing to kind of choose between the two. And it can be a very melancholic experience when Saturn transits or squares your nodal axis, because there's a very strong and emotional reality around which direction do I need to invest my attention to. And it can bring up deep emotions, of course, because it's again pre-Saturn return. It's all it's doing is it's just kind of like reshaping. No, it's not. It's highlighting to you the dynamics of the past, because once you go past your Saturn return, you'll notice that your whole entire life shifts into a new direction, and that's when your real stuff begins to work through. So that's interesting to pay attention to. I'm just trying to think of some other dynamics that are taking place. No, that's about it, to be honest. So what I wanted to focus on with this video was the things of any of you that are Pluto and Sagittarius. Your soul's desire here through this lifetime is to open yourself up to the nature of faith and where to invest your energy into. That is your core belief and your philosophy. You've come to ask the bigger questions in life. Okay, this is your truth. Yet at the same time, you're also living in a world in which technology has integrated itself into us. So you're spending a great deal of time assimilating information at random points, at all points. And it's like, what is my truth? What do I subscribe to? What is my individuality? Which groups do I belong to? And you're also a lot more lighthearted about the experience in life, right? So you have to also find your individuality through the expression of what your truth looks like. Okay. And again, you're so much more abstract rightness in that sense, that a lot of your reality is very different to where the world looks at the stage. And of course, the rest of us are kind of that are older, that are on the planet. We are along that timeline of that evolution being born. And that's what, we come to do. So we might look a little bit different to you in that way. What else did I want to say? There was something specific about the Pluto and Sagittarius. And I said again, like about any of you that are between the ages of 19 and 22, that time frame, of course, your Uranus square is taking place and your Saturn square is taking place. This is about finding individuality in a world that is still, that not only doesn't understand, and this is the imagery that comes to me. It's like you're breaking free from the conditioning of the past. Absolutely, you want to find your own authority, and yet as you liberate yourself from this experience, you also find yourself interacting in a world that is not going to honor your emotional maturity, because that emotional maturity is something that is exclusive to post Saturn return stuff. And again, this doesn't mean that you don't have a place in the world. It just means that it can be very confusing to find yourself in environments that really honor your true nature, because again, like I said, they're still built on establishments of people that are older than you and that have got their own kind of life path to facilitate and establish and create, etc. And you're kind of unfolding into that. So it's like, where do I stand? What are my new roots? And most of you might even feel like a lot of emotional tension. Notice the emotional tension in your body, and that will give you a really good understanding of where your psyche carries some trauma or some sanskaras around, some wounding around, where you're trying to purge. And that, I mean, that's a more deeper issue that we don't have to get into today in terms of today's discussion, but that's pretty much on a more soul level, that experience of, releasing those experiences of the past, that Uranus will actually give you that opportunity to do. So yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for just stopping by and listening to what I have to say today. I really hope that you found some pearls of wisdom in what I've shared with you. Like I said, it wasn't something that was really focused and direct. It was just my own channeling of something that I felt was really important to share for you that are currently going through this period of time. Chill out, relax. You're okay. Just watch the transit and this shall pass. All right. Have a fantastic day. Take care, everybody.